Now, this video is about the individuals who will be writing a letter of recommendation for a student. Nevertheless, writing a letter of recommendation does follow a few strict codes of conduct to ensure that the student is not simply receiving a letter written by a family member. As a matter of fact, that is the first rule: no family members can write a letter of recommendation for a student. This means we will be covering the top tips and tricks needed to write a successful recommendation for a student that needs a college admissions recommendation. For more about this article, you can find out on our website, picascholarship.com, by clicking on the link in the description of this video. Also, you can find us on Facebook and you can like us if you want. Also, it should be known that all students who want to go to college will need a letter of recommendation, and typically, no less than 2. The stages needed to properly write a letter of recommendation will be shown next. Start off with a formal salutation. No one should ever start off a letter of recommendation with "Hey" or "What's up?" This type of letter is in need of a business format. That means the letter needs to be typed out and printed. The 3 different business formats available are block, modified block, and semi-block styles. Understand the type of letterhead needed, font size, 11 or 12, and a typical font type like Arial or Times New Roman. After knowing what entails a business letter structure, the individual who is writing the letter will need to use the first paragraph to introduce the student. It will need to be stated in the first 3 to 4 sentences about who the student is, what grade, and the connection between the individual writing the letter and the student. What not to do. A family member cannot write a letter of recommendation for a family member who is a student. That goes against all college admission rules. If a family member who is a professor does submit a letter of recommendation for a child or family member, that letter will be rejected by the higher education institution. There should never be any abbreviations when it comes to general language. There should be no form of text chat abbreviation within the writing. When it comes to detailing the student's expectations, the letter should be proof as to why this student is considered exceptional and deserves to be enrolled within a particular university. With that in mind, if a teacher only details a student's routine or basic expectations, like they turn in their work on time, this is not what admissions look for in students. Admissions are expecting to read a harrowing description about a student's vibrant leadership or community skills that simply seemed revolutionary. For professors or teachers writing about a student's achievements, this should not be the sole focus. Instead, there should be about a 20% mention of achievements and an 80% about that person's character. When it comes to college admissions and a letter of recommendation, that institution wants to know from the perspective of a colleague or professor why this student may in fact be a great fit for their university. Writing about a student's character is a guaranteed admission entrance. False praise or lack thereof would be considered not a contribution but in fact would play against the student when it comes to college admissions. If a professor/teacher provides faint praise and instead adds much more criticism than there needs to be, the letter of recommendation will most likely be revoked. Because a letter of recommendation is about highlighting why a specific student would be the right fit for this college opportunity. Providing too much criticism would allow admissions to instead insist that the student is not the right fit for their educational institution. What should be written? The second paragraph and even the third should be dedicated to introducing the student and their character traits. This would mean, what makes the student stand out from the rest, or why is the student exceptional and deserves to achieve their higher education dream? Whether it's for engineering, science, mathematics, linguistics, or another field study subject, this information matters. The dictation of the relationship to the student, a simple sentence like current professor or past level 1 college professor in this specific class, is enough of an introduction on how the two individuals do know each other. There is no need to dedicate a whole paragraph to this teacher/student professional relationship. Offering enthusiastic support is the right amount of intent that should be put into a letter of recommendation. This means a professor or teacher would need to provide the right reasonings as to why this student deserves this college opportunity. Also, the writer of the letter of recommendation should look into the requirements that are needed and the rules that should be followed, depending on the college the student is applying to. Each higher education institution has a different set of guidelines. Some request a 2-page letter of recommendation, or some request a minimum of 3 letters of recommendation. It just depends on the college. A few examples of what universities expect when it comes to a letter of recommendation. For the University of Seattle in Washington, United States, the required list includes mentioning a student's GPA, grade, rank, intellectual engagement, work ethic, study habits, effort, enjoyment, curiosity, course content and concepts. Along with social maturity with other classmates, leadership skills, helpful intent, personality traits, mastery of technical skills, mastery of analytical skills, and writing ability. The American University of Paris. Required 2 letters of recommendation. The University of Toronto. 1 letter of recommendation must have information on academics. This would be considered a professional academic letter. The second letter of recommendation would come from an employer of the student. This can be current or previous employment. The University of Tasmania. At this university, instead of a letter of recommendation, they are called a personal competency statement. Stanford University. At Stanford, 2 academic letters of recommendation are required, from 2 separate academic professors. Only 1 optional letter can be submitted. This is a letter of recommendation from someone who is not a teacher or teaching assistant. Stanford asks that the individual who writes the letter of recommendation to submit the letter directly to a single-use email. The recommender will need to list the student's full legal name, birth date, and school name from which the writer is writing from. Stanford does have an available letter of recommendation checklist on their university website. The University of Edinburgh. There is a difference for this university when it comes to recommendation letters. Instead, the difference falls on reference requirements. These requirements will vary between degree programs that are happening within the current year or the next. In fact, only some programs ask for specific references, while others require either 1 or 2 references. Find the specific reference requirements for the chosen program, that is within a bachelor, master's or PhD degree level for that university. However, the normal ratio is 2 letters of recommendation. The University of Leeds. The university asks for students to submit only 2 letters of reference. Letters of reference can be from any lecturer or professor. From here, only the professor or lecturer can submit their letters to a desired email that is given on the university guideline website. From there, if there is any indication that information is needed or needed to be detailed further, the university will only contact the individual that wrote the letter of recommendation. The University of Barcelona. Part of the University of Barcelona's application procedure involves a letter of recommendation. A provisional letter of acceptance, which will need to be written by a professor, will need to be submitted. Also, this is considered a personal letter of recommendation that will need to be from a student. A letter of introduction from the student, signed by a member of staff from your home university, will be needed. The University of Amsterdam. The university asks all applicants to inform the referee about the procedure before the introduction. The institution will need to receive the recommendation letters within a 3-week time period after a student has fully submitted their application. It is not possible to upload recommendation letters from the student themselves. This is against the rules. Only 1 referee is sufficient for the application process. So 1 letter of recommendation that lists the student academic abilities is needed. However, for a PhD, a separate letter detailing information from a lecturer will be needed, which would fall under informed letter of recommendation. By the way, don't forget to click on the subscribe button as well, so you will receive updates from us. That's it for now. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.